In a world
In a world
where tomorrow's blockbusters reign,
and yesterday's classics are forgotten,
3 women intend to remember.
Hey everyone, welcome to Millennials of the Movie House, the podcast where 3 friends watch older movies and review them from our modern everyday perspectives. I'm Betsy.
I'm Tracy.
and I'm Serena.
And today we are talking about This Is Spinal Tap from 1984. From 1984, directed by Rob Reiner, written by Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, Harry Shearer, Rob Reiner, and starring Michael McKean, Christopher Guest, Harry Shearer, and Rob Reiner. Quick synopsis. Tracy, go.
Oh, she paused. I thought she was going to say Serena.
I was literally going to die. I'm like, well, I cannot. So.
All right. This is Spinal Tap. This is a rockumentary, but it is a mockumentary where it is shot like a documentary, but it's all fictitious to some chagrin of people, or I guess to the confusion of many people.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it is following around a rock band who has seen better days. So that's like the end of their career. And then in a surprise twist, they find fame in Japan.
Right.
That's it.
As you do. Good job, Trey.
But it's like, it's the chronicles of like their last tour. And it's the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and kind of the backstory of how they started. And it seemed
a Yoko Ono storyline.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
All right. Yeah. See, simple, straightforward.
Yeah.
All right. So before we jump into this movie specifically, mockumentaries in general, are you guys pro or con mockumentaries?
When you first said it, I was like, ooh, I'm not gonna, I anything mock anything. I'm like, not interested, but totally surprised me. Like I was like a fan. I'm like,
have you ever seen a mockumentary before?
I mean, I have seen like random little things on the TV.
Can you give some examples?
No.
I mean, basically, I mean,
like,
many of Christopher Guest's movies are mockumentaries. So
like Best in Show.
Best in Show is a great example. Or
so I'm gonna throw it out there, but Together.
Yes, I knew you're like so Chris, Tracy's brother, my cousin, and I were talking about this last week, and he's like, she's gonna bring up Together. It's gonna happen. She's gonna bring up Together.
I mean, how can you not? It was the 90s, 2000s version of this. I mean, anyway, I think my answer to your question of do I like mockumentaries or have I seen them? I think if it's well done, but cringy humor, sometimes I get uncomfortable with. This, I think it was done well.
Yeah,
I agree.
It was done really well. Whereas I think like Best in Show, I've never seen it, but
what's the most famous mockumentary? Of course, The Office.
Right.
Yeah.
And often that's about the
obviously famous.
Yes. So, and I get very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
There. However, I think this straddled the line that I was okay with, because there were some points where I was like,
because it's believable.
It goes right up to the line of cringy, and then there's a button that like lands the joke, and you're like, oh, okay, that was funny.
It's the believability once again for Tracy. The minute she's taken out of it, the whole thing's just a flop, and she might as well shut the TV off.
Yes.
Well, I think there's something to be said is you don't want that reality in a little bit, because you want to remember it's a comedy so that you can laugh at it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think
laughing.
The saving grace for this was that it was rock stars. They do crazy. They do crazy things. And of course they would think that or be that dumb or be that like crazy or wear those outfits. Whereas The Office, no. That would
It goes beyond
office.
Normal.
Yeah.
I got you. All right. So specifically this movie, did we like it?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Good.
It was funny. I was laughing. The music was good.
And this is both your first time seeing this.
Yep.
Tracy, had you seen bits and pieces?
I had seen bits and pieces. So I had seen some of like the more famous scenes.
Yeah.
So I kind of knew what I was getting into.
I got you. But good.
This was my first time, and it was funny enough and good enough acting and good enough music. Not just good enough. Like I was actually like having a dance party over it.
I was gonna say, I like in the back of my head, I was like, Serena's gonna genuinely like this music.
No,
like,
I
the
was
music
like,
is actually really good.
it's like the best of 80s rock. Like
Yeah.
I was getting all kinds of different like musical. It's the British rock band
Yes.
thing. That's in the keyboards. Oh, love it.
Yeah.
There was I think their parody of Fat Bottom Girls, their
Yes.
song Big Bottom.
Yes.
I was like, that's already a song. I already like that song.
Yeah. All right, well, let's jump in. Top of the marquee. What was everyone's favorite part? I think I'll go first if you guys
go first.
Don't mind, because we were just talking about it. I think it's the fact that quotes have come out of this that are part of our lexicon. Like we were just saying, is take it to 11 or crank it to 11 came from this one goes to 11. The whole scene really is just hilarious.
Oh, that's what you were saying? This one goes to 11? I thought you said Aladdin. I'm like, what did I miss?
I was saying it in Nigel's British accent.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate that.
And then my other favorite one that I've heard in like regular talk is like none blacker. How much blacker can this album cover be? None blacker.
I don't think I've heard that one before.
I have heard that one around. So I just, as usual, if a quote transcends a movie, I love it so much.
We definitely watched another movie that had that.
Yeah.
So,
but I like that.
There was a couple of things I should have written down during the movie that I did, because I'm like, now I'm going to forget. The money talks, BS walks. That's not from this movie, is it? That doesn't originate here.
I think that's just an adage. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But she nailed it. That was a good scene. Yeah.
I wish there was more Fran Drescher in this.
She was really good in this.
She was like young. Like I was surprised how good she was because this is kind of an overtop movie and she is an overtop like person and she played it so straight.
Yeah.
And I think she did a brilliant job.
Yeah, I really liked her.
Well, and it kind of like, so most people, the only role we know her in is as the nanny. So you kind of just assume that that's her. Yeah. But this is like, no, she's a normal person and she chose to be that character.
Yeah.
All right. What was everyone else's favorite parts?
Trey, you want to go?
Yeah. My favorite parts were actually the sincere scenes that we got with Nigel. So the scene when they were talking about, of course, it quickly went from off the rails, went sincere, and then continued right off the rails when they were being interviewed with him and David, talking about how they met each other and like the first song that they wrote when they were 7 and when they were trying to remember like the lyrics to it. And then they kind of sang some of it and it was so sweet. And this was like, I want to say like pre-rock and roll where it was just like this nice song.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I thought it was
sincere. Like you genuinely thought that they were remembering that off the top of their heads and they hadn't thought of it in 20 years.
Yes. Yeah. And that's a point I want to bring up later. But I also really liked when he started playing the piano.
That was a good scene.
He was just like, oh, it's very soft or whatever. And it was, again, it was that sincere moment. And then when he asked like, oh, what's the name of title? And it's like, I don't even remember it, but it was something like crazy. And it was like, it was such like a beautifully written piano piece.
Yep. In D.
Which is the saddest chord to like,
which goes back to the idea that like that was so real because rock and rollers, they are properly trained musicians and they choose this music genre.
Yes.
So it totally fit.
Yeah. So those were my favorite parts.
Those are
that first scene that the guys are remembering that song from 20 years ago. First off, I know you guys said it was a mockumentary, but I wasn't sure if they were still actually like a band anyways. And so I didn't 100% know. And then when they started remembering that song and singing, I was like, ooh, I feel like I know that song and I like that song. And I was like,
nope, all the songs were made up for this movie.
But I think they were definitely written to emulate other songs. Cause that like that beat, it was like a bluesy type, whatever. And I'm like, I've heard that song before.
That's fair. And I mean, these guys are all musicians, so they all are actually playing these songs.
Yeah.
And I think this group has gone on, like this group of guys have gone on tour. I don't think they're not as Spinal Tap, just as themselves, but they do tour as musicians.
I think, did they have a follow-up movie or something?
Yeah, there was a follow-up movie, The Return of or something. And I didn't really get too much info on it, but there is like a sequel, and I didn't get much info on it. Just
it could have been just, you know,
it was like the return of the Spinal Tap. I think it was called The Return of the Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Serena, what was your favorite part?
Definitely the music. My TV was on volume 50. I don't really care that my neighbors appreciate that or not, because they were being wicked.
She cranked it to 11.
She did.
I cranked it to 50, 11. So I loved that. The 80s fashion. So Janine, even though she was the biggest bee, she had some cool ass outfits. So I was like, definitely with the fashion. And then the other thing that I really like, it wasn't like a favorite scene. It was just like, do you guys remember the little video game
on the bus?
On the bus. I was like, oh my God, that's like the more original
than anything else.
Yeah.
Well, to a point where I was like, I'm impressed they have that on the bus.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then and thinking of like dating the airport security. Hello.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
That is not even close to where we're at right now. So it was kind of funny.
Speaking of that scene, remind me later, and I have a rockstar cucumber story.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Those are my parts.
All good favorite parts. Wow. Just like boom, boom, boom.
Yep.
I'm okay with that. All right, guys. Wheel of questions.
Wheel. Oh.
That was a spinny thing.
I got you.
That's a good spinny thing.
Guys, we're gonna be famous. If we were anybody in this movie, who would we be? All right.
Well, I just want to start. The big three, David, Nigel, Derek. You have Betsy, David, me, Nigel, and Serena, Derek. That's
pretty straight. Yeah.
That's just the straightforward answer.
Yeah.
Right.
That's fair.
Okay. But my real answer, can I do that? Okay.
Yes.
My real answer is just Betsy is the most obvious, and she is Marty.
Marty, of course.
Which Rob Reiner,
the documentarian.
Oh, right. Oh my God, I forgot to add that as a person. That makes better sense. I'm changing.
Yeah.
I'm changing.
I mean, it's just clearly like, I would love to see you do a documentary, because I feel like you could keep that straight face. Like you would ask the questions like, well, why don't you just change it to 10?
Yeah. And he never makes fun of them or lets on that he's like, oh, these are a bunch of morons.
You know,
he's asking them questions on their level. Yeah.
So I think you would excel at that, Bets.
Yeah. Because I think everyone's a moron. So,
so that's just how you live your life day to day. What does that say about us, Serena? Are we just constantly in Betsy's mockumentary that she's making right now?
Like, what if this whole thing is actually like,
oh my God, it is
being pieced together as a
gonna find ourselves on YouTube someday. Then, so if that's Betsy, then Serena is very much Bobby. Fran Drescher. She's the nanny.
Yeah, that's okay. Yep.
Yeah.
She is the one that like calls out them being sexist and is like, this doesn't fly. Like and she, like what she says goes. She's just like,
that's I picked her for me, and that's for those reasons.
Yeah. So
I got
and not to mention she looked amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. They were all like, babies. All these actors I know as very much older. Like some of them I did not recognize. And then after the fact, I was like, oh my God, of course. How did I not recognize them?
Nigel is a six-fingered man from Princess Bride.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then
I
Michael
just
McKean,
learned that now.
Like I know him as like a middle-aged man.
Right.
So like just like a little bit more weight on him, a little bit more a little older. I would not have picked him out.
Yeah.
There was like
Paul Schaefer is in this and he is unrecognizable.
like Dana Carvey and Billy Crystal.
Oh, yes. They had their cameos.
And like Angelica Houston. I did not recognize her at
Who
all.
was she in it?
She was the one who built the monolith.
My God.
Yeah.
I didn't register that at all.
I was so not her. You know how like she's got this very like severe face? She had like a rounder face and a very soft voice.
Oh my God.
And I
I'm
couldn't
have to watch
believe
it again now.
And
I
had to go back and rewind and watch it because we just watched Ever After.
Yeah.
So I was like, there's a repeat actress and I didn't like, there was so few females in this. I'm like, and I didn't see her. How is that possible?
Oh my God. Yeah. That's insane.
I didn't recognize her at all.
The only thing that not pulled me out of this, but made me realize that it was a mockumentary is because I recognized Rob Reiner, Billy Crystal, Fran Drescher. So everybody else, even though I know who they are, I didn't at first recognize them.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think probably at the time these were all new people. Cause like my complaint, those were in air quotes right there, was that I was like, oh, I would have done it with no names. And it's like, well, probably at the time they were no names.
Yeah.
So, you know,
yep.
Kudos.
I'm trying to think where Michael McKean is in.
Oh, he's in a million things.
His name is so familiar, but I didn't recognize anybody.
Serena, do you know what he's in? The X-Files.
Oh my God.
And cut.
And cut. That's a wrap. Thanks for joining.
It's one of the most iconic episodes where he switches personalities with Fox Mulder. It is hilarious. Anyway, that's all. Anyway, that was the longest tangent to get to. I casted myself as Derek. He was just the comic relief, kind of went with the flow, didn't want to stir the pot. And then he had this conversation with David that was like, you know, maybe this is a good thing. We're getting a little too old for this. And now it frees us up to do other creative things. And they were talking about doing like this
the rock opera.
The rock opera.
So see that. I would absolutely.
I would definitely like the rock opera of Jack the Ripper. And I was like, yes,
so I would in right now. That would be such a hit
go
right now.
And see that. Yeah. So who else? I stole the
I'll
first.
Go next.
Okay.
So obviously I had myself as Marty as well. That was
clearly.
Serena actually had as Nigel, because the genuine music talent first off.
The grin that Serena just gave. I wish we could have had that. Yep.
And I want to say, so Nigel Nigel tended to call David and Janine.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Serena, I think that's very you as well. So I think so. Yeah. So there were definitely elements of Nigel that
his face
that I saw Nigel.
His face, Betsy, in one of the scenes when Janine was saying something, he was like, "Is this a joke?
Yeah.
Is this a joke?" And I'm like said those words and made that face before.
Yeah. I got you. Oh, sorry. So Tracy, I put her as herself. I put her as the person who prepared the smorgasbord in that one.
Oh
scene.
My God. Yep. And like, do we even know who that character was?
No, that character never appeared.
It was the person behind the curtain.
I got the fancy bread.
Yeah. I knew that that was Tracy's job when she was in college. And I'm sure you dealt with that type of annoyances.
Yep. I had to drive to Boston from New Hampshire for special lozenges.
Oh my
That was
God.
the farthest I went to get something for a rider. And then my cucumber story is one of the bands on their rider asked for a cucumber to be on stage. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, what weird, sick thing are they going to do with this cucumber that I do not want to know about? But so I approached the manager and I was like, okay, the dressing room's all set up. Everything's set up, whatever, ready for everybody.
Cukes are ready.
Here's your cucumber for the stage. Where would you like me to put it? And they're like, oh, no, thank you. This is to make sure that you're reading the rider and we know that you're following instructions. Yeah. Good job. Yeah. And I was like, wow. Okay.
You passed the test.
I passed the test.
Oh my God.
But like I never dealt with this, but there are like horror stories of bands being like, I only want, blue M&Ms, and I only want, and this was before you could just go to the store and get blue M&Ms at the M&M store. But you know what I mean? Like they would be like, pick out this and do weird crap.
That's crazy.
Make the bread
like,
and the meat the same size.
Like diva.
On the one hand, I see Nigel's point, but on the other hand, I see Ian's point too.
Right.
Which is you fold it up, and now it's the right size. All right, Serena, it's your turn. We're gonna be famous.
You guys already said all the ones that I would pick, so now I'm gonna do a combination.
Okay.
So I would like. I'm gonna say myself first. Fran, what's her name? Bobby.
Yep.
Bobby combined with Janine.
Okay.
And the reason being is Bobby, because she's just awesome.
Badass.
And then Janine is such a annoying character. So it's really not for that. It's more her outfits. Yeah. And she had a nice tan going. She was in pretty good shape. And I was like, you know what? That's goals. I could do a combination of those two.
Can I say something about Janine? I feel like we're giving her crap that she deserves, but I feel like she did care about the band. She did want to do it well. And like when she was given the job to like book their things, like when they would like a couple of them got canceled, she found replacements.
Yeah. She tried her best. Yeah.
That's not her fault that the band was going downhill. So
those scenes when she did take the reins and was actually setting things up, it seemed genuine, like she genuinely cared, but at the same time, you would just tell her she had like just a dislike for Nigel. You know what I mean? And so
even David had said that they're similar, so that's why they don't get along. Like, so she was organized, but she was also organized where like she was like, okay, Taurus is in the House of Mercury right now, so we can't get on this flight. We're gonna have to like. She was also cray. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, no. So that's what I have for that. And then I had a combination of two people for Betsy before I knew Marty was an option. So for Betsy, I combined Ian because he's the manager and Betsy runs stuff, obviously, with Derek, because Derek was kind of like, in my opinion, like calming presence, had like a good head on his shoulders,
keeping the peace.
And then for Trey, I was torn. Like at first I was thinking it was just the guys. So I was going to do a Nigel for Tracy because you could tell he genuinely cared,
I love Nigel. I don't know what it is.
Sincere character.
Yeah,
he was.
I loved him.
So anyway, so that's what I had.
All right. Good answers all around. Wait a minute. What movies that we've reviewed does this remind us of? The only one that I can think of off the top of my head, and not off the top of my head, I had to go look at a list to make sure I caught them all, was Between the Lines.
I had that one too.
Yeah. Because I feel like it's a similar style, but just like from opposite sides. So you've got the odd, they're the reviewers and whatnot, and then this is the band.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you had told me that was a real newspaper, I would have been like, oh, yep, okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I had that, and I also had Plan 9.
Oh yeah,
just like as not that it was rough or bad like Plan 9 was, but more of like they were improvising lines and like coming up with it, make it work type of,
yeah. That like off the cuff style.
Yeah,
I got you.
But it was still kind of natural and mostly believable.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was laughing, like I knew it was a comedy.
You mean that This Is Spinal Tap?
Yeah.
I have a note here that I was just like, it had to have been so hard to do this. Like, I think this has to be harder than having a script and just to be so casual and to have responses and to be real when you're not being real has got to be the hardest thing ever.
Yeah.
And the genuine scenes sold it.
Yeah. Just
I mean, just the fact that they went in with a general outline of this is where we're starting with the scene, this is where we need to get to with the scene, and the fact that they created these intricate backstories on these characters so that they all had a common history to pull from.
Yes.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's just insane.
I feel like it's just a masterclass in improv. It's like a what is it? A yes and where you're like, you accept whatever they say. That is now your history. And now you can't react because this is real. This is real life. It's not supposed to be funny. And then you just add to it. You're just like, yep, he spontaneously combusted. We feel bad, but it was, and they just keep going. And it was fun. Like,
I forgot about that. Why? What? That was the only part that I didn't get. I was like, I understand it's kind of like a joke, but then I was kind of like, is this basing on a real existing band? Like, were they drug overdoses and stuff like that? Or
I think some of them were, but
I was gonna say some of the like the hair bands, they just went through these iterations where it's just like, every month it was a different band member, and like, and it was running on that joke. Yeah.
Sorry, in this section, I know we've changed the question a little bit, but I want to throw out there. I already talked about Together and Almost Famous, but I also want to put out there That Thing You Do.
Oh yeah, yes.
It's not quite a documentary, but it's that like fake band, and this is kind of how their lives were.
Yeah. That meteoric rise and the idea of like band relationships, how they interact with each other and the different personalities. Yeah. That's a good one.
I was getting Wayne's World vibes.
Oh yeah. Yep.
You guys, and I don't know, I forget exactly what year the first Wayne's World came out, but
it was in the early 90s. I would not be surprised if This Is Spinal Tap directly influenced Wayne's World. I would not be surprised at all. Ladies, please remove your hats and silence your cell phones. How did this film hold up? I think we were just saying, I think it does hold up.
Yeah. I mean, it's always our caveat that we say it's a moment in time, but this seriously was a moment in time. Like it captured what, rock stars' life was like in a funny way, but I think it.
And I think Tracy proved that lifestyle is still very much the same. It's just the genre of music has changed.
Yeah.
So really, I mean, we were saying that like you couldn't really make this movie again and it won't be as effective, but
that's true.
I feel like you just put it to a different band.
Yeah.
It's still sex, drugs, rock and roll, says the man in his shower cap in the bathtub.
He looked strung the F out.
Yeah.
He looked, and in fact, who was that guy?
He was the drummer of the
That's
moment.
what I thought.
All right. Boom, we fixed it. Again, are there any fixes that we can think of? Are there any problems?
Moment in time makes it hard to
and the fact that it was improv and it was there.
Oh my gosh.
It was so much an artist creating something, comedians creating this movie. Yeah. There's nothing to fix in that sense because they didn't go in planned.
Yeah, that's true.
Does that make sense?
Having said that, I think my only and it's because I want the movie ending, but it wasn't it was a movie, but it was a documentary. Like you're not going to have like a wrap up happily ever after. It kind of did just end. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, and they got famous again touring in Japan, which, you assume that eventually they go downhill again or retire or do whatever. So my fix would to be like, yeah, but what really happened? Because obviously they're not a real band. So I can't like look up like, oh, well, what did happen to these guys? I wanted to know what happened. Specifically, I wanted to know David and Nigel's relationship because it was like I think I liked the whole when he was like, yeah, come up,
pulled him up on stage.
Yeah,
I think that was them like smoothing things over. I think that was like supposed to give us like closure on that issue.
It was, but then you saw, I think, did Nigel exchange a glance with Janine, or was it Ian who exchanged a glance with Janine?
It wasn't a glance exchange. It was Nigel looking at Janine being like, David has to pick between the two of us right now. And David picks Nigel.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, if that's what that was, then I'm okay with the ending. I think
you're right that these types of documentaries, if it was an actual documentary, you would get that script that's those like 3 sentences at the very end over black being like, Nigel went on to blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like, they
like, for example, That Thing You Do, that's exactly what they do there.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So I see your point, Tracy, with the boom, we fixed it. Epilogue, basically, which at the end of the day is what our usual issue is, epilogue or lack thereof. All right, notes roundup. One of my all-time favorite scenes is the scene where he can't get out of the pod. It is just the funniest thing.
Yep.
Because they're still playing their song. They're still doing fine. But that poor roadie is just like working.
Shout out to the roadie.
So hard.
Yep.
Yeah, the flame, the open flame.
Yeah.
I think that was the pivotal, like the iconic moment of him being kind of the comic relief or the butt of the joke. And it just like the cosmic forces that like he has to deal with or whatever.
Right. But he still did his part.
Yep.
And then his arm got stuck and he was like,
that scene and the finding the stage scene.
Was
good. There was a couple of good, like just too funny. The last bit of the movie, the director was asking, give me a line, like what would your epithet say? Like and I think the best one, I think it was David who said, I'm David St. Hubbins and why not? Like that, like I know it was supposed to be funny or he was an idiot or whatever, but I felt like, I don't know. I was like, yeah. And why not? Like, why? I feel like that's such a good, like, way to live or something, like, why not? Why not me? Why not go for the thing? Why not go have, you know what I mean? Like,
yep. All right.
Good movie pick, Bets. Was there a reason why you wanted us to do this one? It was the mockumentary experience.
No, more than anything else. I just happened to watch it about a month ago. I was like scrolling through what to watch on a streaming service, and I was like, yes, let's watch this movie. And then by the time I was finished, I was like, I'm making the girls watch it. It's like,
it was fun.
Watch it.
First 5-10 minutes, I was like, oh yeah, this is happening.
Yeah.
Volume 11.
Well, and I did want to make sure that you were aware that it was a mockumentary because, like we said, a lot of audience members did not know that.
Well, there's a couple of like random little scenes, and I was like, could they be a real band? And then this mockumentary is a joke on still a real band, though. Like in my head, I was thinking that, and I'm like, is there like there's a fine line here that they're so good that they could be a band. So then it kind of makes me be like, but then it was like, okay, if the band sucked, then the movie would have sucked more. So
yes, I think it goes to the credit of the amazing acting that people thought that, because I absolutely believe that was a real conversation and not fake.
Yeah. All right. Well then, martini shot. Would you recommend this movie?
Yes.
Serena?
Yes.
And of course I'm a yes because I did.
Even if you don't like that kind of humor, I was able to get through it. I still enjoyed it. If you like 80s bands or any music, really, I think this is great.
It's the closest to cringe comedy without it being cringe comedy.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Good game, guys. Good game.
GG.
Thanks for joining us. If you like what you hear, you can find more great episodes over on our website, www.millennialsatthemoviehouse.com, or wherever you find your podcasts. Curious about updates, extras from our episodes, or want to add your 2 cents about a reviewed movie? We're also on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle for both is @themoviemillies. Check us out and make sure to follow us. So until next time,
we're millennials.
And we'll see you at the movie house.